So I'm part of that small bridge generation between the people who have been born into a world where there's never not been an internet and the people who were in a world where the internet was invented. So my parents' generation and then kind of the younger generation that lives today, the teenagers and the young 20-somethings. I'm Colin Wright, and you are watching Consider This. And so there's advantages and disadvantages to being part of this type of bridge generation, where during your lifetime a new technology that changes everything comes into existence. One advantage is that you get to see these changes as they occur. The other advantage is that you tend to have some of the pros from both of these sides. You tend to have some of the benefits of existing before the internet, for example, and some of the benefits of existing in a world where the internet is incredibly popular and increasingly integral to everything that we do. On the flip side, you're always kind of on the verge of becoming an unintentional Luddite, which is to say that as new movements happen, as new technologies come along, as new businesses form, you're never quite sure which one is a big new thing on the scope and scale of the internet, and which of these things is just a passing fad. And the reason is that in the moment, a lot of these things don't register necessarily as being like a big deal, as something that's going to change everything. They don't necessarily register as something that will resonate and change the way that you live, and that will impact everybody's lives and change the way that society operates and the way that commerce operates. If you look back at a lot of the initial news articles that were written about the internet and about computers and things of that nature, they were very skeptical about this technology ever becoming anything more than like a CB radio type of thing, where a few gimmicky geeks and hobbyists were interested, but otherwise it was totally useless. It was something that nobody would ever have to know about or worry about. And so then, being part of this bridge generation, being at today 31 years old, something comes along like Snapchat, and you look at it and you're like, okay, well, this could be everything, or this could be nothing. This could be something that changes the way that people communicate. It could be the next Facebook. Or it could be something that is a passing fad that everybody signs up for and then drops it within the year. There's no real way to know, and being part of this type of generation, you've seen it both ways. You've gotten really enthusiastic and excited about something that then has turned out to be a passing fad, but then you've also accidentally ignored and even scoffed at some of the things that have ended up being the next big thing. And recognizing this is incredibly humbling. And that's perhaps a good thing, I think, because you do have to be kind of humble in recognizing your own limitations with this type of deal. And that humility, I think, is the same thing that allows you then to experiment, even with things that you think could be just a passing fad, or something that just the kids do because they don't know the correct way to do it, or some other dismissive standpoint of that kind. I remember very intentionally trying to figure out emoji, and then trying to figure out Snapchat. These were two things that when they came out, I was just blown away that they were being adopted so quickly, because I didn't get it. I could not fathom how these things were so popular. They did not seem at all relevant to the way that I communicated and the way that I experienced communication technology and the internet. But I forced myself to give them a shot. I downloaded Snapchat. I started playing around with emoji keyboards and trying to use them in conversation. And wonder of wonders, I figured it out. I understood at least their purpose and their utility. There's certain things that you can express with emoji that would be very difficult to express concisely using written language. And likewise, there's certain types of stories that you can tell using an app like Snapchat that would be very difficult to tell on any other type of app. And so experiential types of things in particular that you can cut together and put together into a story, that's arguably the best platform for that type of thing. And so it makes perfect sense, but before I experimented with it and gave it a shot, it seemed like the dumbest thing in the world to me. And I could not figure out how all of these people had been fooled into thinking that it was useful and interesting. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I will be able to maintain that type of humility in the future that allows me to continuously question my own judgment with these types of things. Because in some cases I'm going to be right, because the trends will be informed by things that I already understand. But in a lot of cases, they're going to be the result of waves, of undercurrents that I do not see because I'm not a part of them. and increasingly so. And so if I allow myself to lapse at all, then I will find myself in that group of people who just sits and criticizes things all the time because they don't understand them, because they're not relevant to the life that they've already built in a time that had very different underpinnings. And it's important to remember, too, that this is not just a concern for the olds like me. This is something that we're all going to have to worry about. The people who are teenagers right now and who are currently informing a whole lot of these movements and creating them out of their creativity and their use of these technologies in a different way from anybody else, give it 5 or 10 years and they are going to be the accidental, unintentional Luddites as that new group of young kids come in and replace them. And this is a continuous thing, and it goes back and forth sometimes too. Sometimes there's stuff coming from the older generation as well. I mean, obviously, everything that's built came from older generations at some point, but I'm talking trend-wise. There's stuff coming from that direction as well, but a lot of this is informed by the newer and newer and younger group. And if those of us who are part of these other generations do not have the humility to see that and to try these things out, to try them on for size, then we do run the risk of being left behind and being the only ones to blame for that. Every single one of these things, all of these different movements, these trends, these technologies, these apps, these whatever, have the potential to be incredibly valuable tools. All that's required of us is that we see them as such. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can give it a like, you can subscribe to my channel, you can leave a comment below and ask a question for me to answer in a future video. If you want to find out more about me and see a list of my books and other projects, you can go to colin.io. My blog is at exilelifestyle.com. My podcast is called Let's Know Things, and you can find that wherever you get your podcasts or at letsknowthings.com. And you can find me personally pretty much everywhere on the internet, on Instagram, Twitter, and yes, even Snapchat, at Colin is my name.